Li Huan moved through the corridors of the starship like a ghost. His footsteps made no sound on the metal floors. When he spoke, which was rare, his voice came out as a whisper. Most of the crew forgot he was there until they needed the communication systems fixed. The New Horizon was a big ship. 300 crew members worked on different decks, doing their jobs to map new star systems far from Earth. Li Huan spent most of his time alone in the communication bay, a small room filled with screens and blinking lights. He liked it there. It was quiet. Today felt different. Li Huan sat at his workstation listening to radio signals from deep space. Usually he heard nothing but static and the natural sounds of stars. But something new was there. Voices, not human voices. Captain Park Nari walked onto the bridge above him. Her boots clicked on the floor as she moved between stations. She was a good captain, fair and smart. Li Huan had served under her for 2 years. She was one of the few people who remembered to say hello to him. "Anything interesting today, Huan?" Dr. Kim Day asked as he passed through the communication bay. He was the science officer, always busy with his research. He never stopped for Li Huan's answer. Li Huan said nothing. He put on his headphones and listened closer to the strange signals. The voices were speaking in a language he had never heard before, but there were patterns in the sounds. Numbers, coordinates, military terms that sounded the same in any language. His fingers moved fast over his keyboard. He started recording everything. The computer began analyzing the signals, looking for patterns and meaning. Li Huan had learned many languages during his time in the military. He was good at breaking codes and finding hidden messages. The alien voices got stronger. More of them joined the conversation. Li Huan's eyes went wide as he realized what he was hearing. This was not just random chatter. This was a military communication network. And it was huge. Han Sol, his work partner, came into the room carrying 2 cups of coffee. She was always cheerful and talked enough for both of them. "You look worried," she said, setting a cup next to Li Huan's keyboard. "Find something interesting?" Li Huan pointed at his screen. Lines of code and signal analysis filled the display. "Listen," he whispered. Han Sol put on the extra headphones. Her face changed as she heard the alien voices. "What is this?" "Are these aliens?" Li Huan said softly. "Military signals. Many ships." Han Sol ran to the bridge communication panel. "Captain Park, you need to hear this." Within minutes, the senior officers crowded into the communication bay. Captain Park Nari, Dr. Kim Day, and the other department heads listened as Li Huan played back the recordings. The room buzzed with excited voices. "How many ships are we talking about?" Captain Park asked. Li Huan's fingers moved over his controls. Numbers appeared on the main screen. "At least 1,000. Maybe more. All moving in the same direction. Where are they going?" Dr. Kim Day demanded. Li Huan showed them a star map. A red line pointed toward human space. "Toward Earth. They will reach our colonies in 6 weeks. Earth in 8 weeks." The room went quiet. Everyone understood what this meant. An alien fleet was heading toward human space. The biggest fleet anyone had ever detected. "We need to warn Earth Command immediately," Captain Park said. "How much of their language can you understand?" "Not much," Li Huan admitted. "But I can learn. Their communication system is complex. More complex than anything humans have built." Lieutenant Commander Seo Bin, the tactical officer, studied the data. "Our entire fleet has maybe 300 ships. If these numbers are right, we're badly outnumbered." The officers started talking all at once. Some wanted to run. Others wanted to fight. Everyone had opinions about what to do next. Their voices got louder and louder. Li Huan sat quietly in his chair, still listening to the alien signals. While the others argued, he worked. His computer continued analyzing the alien language patterns. Slowly, words began to make sense. Ship names, military ranks, strategic terms. He learned that the aliens called themselves the Velkari. They were warriors who had conquered many worlds. They saw humans as weak and noisy. They planned to attack human colonies first, then move on to Earth. But Li Huan found something else in their signals. The Velkari ships were not just talking to each other. They were connected. Their communications flowed like water through a network that linked every ship together. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "Captain," Li Huan said quietly. The room was still full of loud voices. Nobody heard him. "Captain," he said again, a little louder. Park Nari looked over. "What is it, Huan?" Li Huan put a datapad on the table in front of her. The screen showed alien text with human translations underneath. I broke some of their codes. 23% so far. The room went silent. Everyone stared at the datapad. You did this in the last hour? Dr. Kimday asked, amazed. Li Huan nodded. Their language follows mathematical patterns. Once you find the key, the rest follows. Captain Park picked up the datapad and read through the translations. Her face grew serious. They call their leader Admiral Thexvar. They have something called bio-neural networks. What does that mean? I'm not sure yet, Li Huan whispered. But I think their ships share thoughts. Like a hive mind. Xiaobin leaned forward. If that's true, disrupting their communications might be more effective than fighting their ships. Li Huan looked up from his screen. This was the most he had spoken in months. I need more time to understand their network. If I can map how their ships connect, maybe we can find a weakness. Captain Park made her decision. Do it. Take whatever resources you need. Hansel, work with him. Everyone else, prepare a message for Earth Command. We need every ship they can spare. As the officers left to carry out their orders, Li Huan returned to his work. The alien voices continued their dark conversations about conquest and destruction, but he was beginning to understand them. And understanding was the first step toward stopping them. He put his headphones back on and listened to the sounds of war approaching. In the quiet of his communication bay, Li Huan began the work that would save humanity. The aliens thought humans were too noisy. They had never met someone like him. 3 days passed. Li Huan had not left the communication bay. Empty coffee cups and food containers covered his desk. His eyes were red from staring at screens, but his hands never stopped moving over the keyboard. The alien signals grew stronger each day. More Velkari ships joined the fleet. Li Huan counted them as they checked in with their commanders. 1,000 ships became 2,000. Then 5,000. Now his computers showed more than 10,000 vessels moving toward human space. You need to sleep, Hansel said, bringing him another meal. When did you last close your eyes? Li Huan did not answer. He was deep in the alien language patterns, following connections between ships. The Velkari network was like nothing humans had ever built. Each ship contained living creatures that worked like organic computers. These creatures shared thoughts instantly across vast distances. Admiral Choi Yuna arrived on the New Horizon with a battle fleet. She was Earth's best military commander, known for winning impossible battles. Her ships looked tiny next to the approaching Velkari Armada, but she brought hope to the crew. Show me what you have learned, Admiral Choi told Li Huan. Li Huan's voice was hoarse from not speaking. The Velkari do not communicate like humans. They use living networks. Every ship has creatures that think together. When one ship learns something, all ships know it immediately. He showed her a diagram on his main screen. Lines connected thousands of dots, showing how information flowed through the alien fleet. It is like a giant brain. Each ship is a brain cell. The thoughts move through quantum connections. Admiral Choi studied the display. What controls this network? Their flagship. The biggest ship carries the main brain creatures. All other ships connect to it. Without the flagship, the network breaks down. So we destroy their flagship, Admiral Choi said. Li Huan shook his head. The flagship has the strongest defenses. Our weapons cannot reach it, and if we attack it directly, the other ships will protect it. Lieutenant Commander Seo Bin joined their conversation. She had been working with Li Huan for the past 2 days, bringing him food and helping analyze the data. What if we do not attack with weapons? She asked. Li Huan looked at her with tired eyes. What do you mean? You said their network shares thoughts. What if we sent them the wrong thoughts? For the first time in days, Li Huan smiled. It was a small smile, but it meant he was thinking. That might work, but we would need to understand their network completely. Every connection, every frequency. How long would that take? Admiral Choi asked. I do not know. The network is very complex. It uses bioelectrical signals that change constantly, like a living thing. Admiral Choi put her hand on Li Huan's shoulder. Do your best. Earth is counting on you. After the Admiral left, Seo Bin stayed behind. She watched Li Huan work, amazed at how fast his fingers moved over the controls. Why are you so quiet? She asked. Li Huan paused. He rarely talked about his past. When I was young, my family lived on New Seoul Colony. Pirates attacked when I was 7 years old. They came at night. My parents hid me in a closet and told me not to make any sound. Any sound at all. Seobin listened carefully. I stayed in that closet for 3 days. I heard terrible things, but I never made a sound. When the rescue ships came, I was the only survivor. I learned that sometimes staying quiet keeps you alive. But you joined the military after that, Seobin said. Yes. I learned to break enemy codes, to listen to their secrets. Words have power, but silence has power too. Li Huan went back to his work. The Valkyrie signals told him more about their network every hour. He discovered that their bioneural connections worked on specific frequencies. Like a radio, each ship tuned into the same station to share thoughts. But there was something special about one frequency. It carried more data than the others. Stronger signals. More important messages. Li Huan thought this might be the command frequency, the one that told all ships what to do. I found something, he told Seobin. There is a master frequency. It comes from their flagship and reaches every ship in the fleet. What kind of signals does it carry? Commands, battle orders, navigation data. Everything important goes through this frequency. Seobin understood immediately. If we could disrupt that frequency, the entire network might fail, Li Huan finished. But we need to be closer. Much closer. These signals are too weak to analyze properly from here. The next morning, Captain Park called a meeting with all senior officers. The latest intelligence from Earth showed human fleets moving to defend the colonies. 300 human ships against 10,000 alien vessels. The odds were hopeless unless they found another way. We need volunteers for a reconnaissance mission, Captain Park announced. Someone has to get close to the alien fleet and gather detailed information about their communications. How close? Dr. Kim Day asked. Close enough to map their entire network. Close enough to understand exactly how their bioneural system works. Everyone knew this was a suicide mission. Getting close to 10,000 alien warships meant certain death. But they needed the information to have any chance of stopping the invasion. Li Huan stood up slowly. His quiet voice barely reached the back of the room. I will go. Huan, you do not have to, Captain Park began. I am the only one who understands their network. If someone else goes, they might miss important details. I have to be the one. Admiral Choi looked at him with respect. We have an experimental stealth ship, the Shadow Walker. It can get you close without being detected. But if they find you... I understand, Li Huan whispered. Yang Tai, an old friend from Li Huan's military days, volunteered to pilot the stealth ship. Captain Baek Ara commanded the Shadow Walker and knew how to use its advanced hiding technology. As preparations began for the dangerous mission, Li Huan continued studying the Valkyrie signals. Every hour brought new understanding of their network. He was beginning to see patterns that even the aliens might not know about. The bioneural network was incredibly sophisticated, but it had one weakness. Like all networks, it depended on coordination. If the right signal was sent at the right time, the entire system might collapse. Li Huan had found humanity's only hope. Now he had to get close enough to use it. The Shadow Walker was unlike any ship Li Huan had seen before. Its hull was covered in panels that bent light around it, making it nearly invisible. The interior was cramped and dark, designed for stealth rather than comfort. Captain Baek Ara was a small woman with sharp eyes. She had tested the stealth technology on dozens of dangerous missions. Stay quiet and stay still, she told her passengers. Any sudden movement or loud noise could give us away. Li Huan smiled slightly. Staying quiet was something he did well. Yang Tai, his old military friend, sat in the pilot's seat. They had served together during the border wars, breaking enemy codes and intercepting secret messages. Yang Tai was one of the few people who understood why Li Huan chose silence over words. Remember the Centauri mission? Yang Tai asked as they prepared to launch. You found that hidden enemy base just by listening to their radio chatter. This is different, Li Huan replied softly. The Valkyrie are not human. Their minds work in ways we do not understand. The Shadow Walker left the human fleet and headed toward the Valkyrie Armada. As they got closer, the alien ships appeared on their screens. Thousands of vessels moved through space in perfect formation. Each ship was huge, covered in organic curves that looked more grown than built. They are beautiful, Captain Baek Ara whispered. Li Huan studied the ships through his instruments. The bioneural signals were much stronger here. He could feel the network's presence like standing next to a waterfall of alien thoughts. The largest ship dominated the center of the formation. The Silence Bringer was 10 times bigger than any human vessel. Its surface pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that matched the rhythm of the network signals. That is where the main brain creatures live, Li Huan explained. The ship itself is part of the network. Inside the alien flagship, Admiral Thexvar commanded his vast fleet. He was an insectoid creature with 6 arms and compound eyes that saw in multiple spectrums. His mind was directly connected to the bioneural network, allowing him to think with the collective intelligence of 10,000 ships. The humans were the noisy species, in Velkari language. They broadcast their thoughts carelessly through electromagnetic signals. They had no discipline, no coordination. Thexvar planned to silence them forever, but he did not know that one human was listening to every thought the network shared. The Shadow Walker moved carefully through the outer edge of the alien formation. Li Huan deployed sensor probes, tiny devices that recorded bioneural signals from multiple locations. Each probe gave him a different view of the network. The patterns are becoming clear, he told his companions. The network operates in layers. Basic ships connect to squadron leaders. Squadron leaders connect to fleet commanders. Fleet commanders connect to the flagship. Like a military chain of command, Yang Te observed. More than that, they share actual thoughts. When Admiral Thexvar decides to attack a planet, every ship commander experiences his decision as if it were their own thought. Captain Beck-Ara kept the ship steady as they moved deeper into the alien formation. Her hands were sweaty on the controls, but her voice stayed calm. How close do you need to get? Closer. I need to understand the command protocols. The exact frequencies and timing patterns the flagship uses to control the network. They approached a group of Velkari cruisers. Each ship was the size of a human battleship, but they moved with organic grace. Li Huan could see living tissue integrated into their hulls, pulsing with neural activity. The ships themselves are part of the network, he realized. The Velkari did not just build communication systems, they grew them. Yang Tai looked at his old friend with concern. Li Huan had been working without rest for 6 days. His hands shook slightly as he operated his instruments. When did you last eat something? Food is not important now, Li Huan whispered. We are seeing something no human has ever seen before. A completely biological approach to space combat. As they gathered more data, Li Huan began to understand the Velkari's greatest secret. Their bioneural network was not just a communication system. It was a single vast mind distributed across thousands of ships. Each vessel was like a neuron in a gigantic brain, but this strength was also a weakness. If the network operated like a brain, then it could be disrupted like a brain. The right signal at the right time could cause the entire system to crash. I need to map the cascade patterns, Li Huan explained. In human brains, electrical signals follow specific pathways. Disrupt those pathways, and the brain stops working properly. You think the Velkari network has similar pathways? Captain Bayakara asked. I am beginning to see them. The network has primary channels and backup channels. If we could overload the primary channels at exactly the right moment. Li Huan's instruments detected a change in the alien signals. The network was preparing for something big. Ships were synchronizing their bioneural connections, creating stronger links between vessels. They are getting ready to attack, he said urgently. The network is entering combat coordination mode. Through his probes, Li Huan watched the Velkari prepare for war. The alien fleet had reached the edge of human space. Colonies with billions of people lay ahead, defenseless against such overwhelming force. But Li Huan had found what he came for. The combat coordination process revealed the network's most important frequencies. He could see how signals flowed from the flagship to every other ship. More importantly, he could see the exact timing sequences the network used to synchronize all vessels. I have it, he told his companions. The network uses a cascade synchronization system. During combat, all ships connect to receive targeting data simultaneously. There is a 3.7-second window when every vessel in the fleet is linked together. What happens during those 3.7 seconds? Yang Te asked. The network is completely open. No security protocols, no backup systems. If we could inject the right signal during that window, the entire fleet would be affected, Captain Beck-Ara finished. Li Huan nodded. But the signal has to be perfect. Wrong frequency or bad timing, and it will not work. We only get one chance. The Shadow Walker had gathered enough data. It was time to return to the human fleet and prepare for the most dangerous operation in military history. As they slipped away from the alien armada, Li Huan continued analyzing the bioneural patterns. The Velkari thought their network was unbreakable. They had used it to conquer dozens of worlds without ever losing a battle, but they had never faced someone who understood the power of silence. Li Huan had spent his life listening to secrets. Now he had learned the greatest secret of all. The Velkari's strength could become their weakness. Their perfect coordination could become perfect chaos. All he had to do was wait for the right moment and send the right signal. In 3.7 seconds, he could save humanity or doom it forever. Li Huan had been awake for 96 hours. His eyes burned from staring at screens, but he could not stop working. The data from their reconnaissance mission filled dozens of computers with alien network patterns. The human fleet gathered near Jupiter, preparing for a battle they could not win. 300 ships against 10,000. Admiral Choi Yuna knew the numbers were hopeless, but she had one advantage the aliens did not expect. She had Li Huan. "Show me the plan one more time," Admiral Choi said, standing behind Li Huan's workstation. Li Huan's voice was barely a whisper. The Velkari network synchronizes every 47 minutes during combat operations. All ships connect to receive targeting updates from the flagship. During synchronization, there is a 3.7-second window when security protocols are disabled. "And that is when you send your signal?" "Yes, but the timing must be perfect. The signal must reach every ship at exactly the same moment. 1 second too early or too late, and the cascade failure will not occur." Dr. Kim Dae studied the technical specifications. He finally understood what Li Huan had discovered. "You are going to turn their own network against them." "Brilliant." "It might not work," Li Huan admitted. "I have never tested it. We only get one chance." Seo Bin brought him another cup of coffee. She had stayed by his side for days, helping with calculations and making sure he ate. "What happens if it does work?" "The bioneural network will experience a cascade failure. Like a seizure in a human brain. All ships will lose coordination simultaneously." "For how long?" Li Huan rubbed his tired eyes. "I do not know. Maybe minutes. Maybe hours. Long enough for our ships to attack while they are confused." Captain Park Nari joined the discussion. "What do you need from us?" "Complete access to our communication array. I need to boost our signal strength to reach their entire fleet. And I need absolute silence during the transmission. Any interference could ruin everything." The Velkari Armada reached Earth's outer system 2 days later. Their ships blotted out the stars, a dark mass of organic curves and pulsing lights. Long-range sensors showed the alien fleet moving into attack formation. Admiral Thexavar felt satisfaction flow through the bioneural network. The noisy humans had gathered their pathetic fleet near the gas giant. 300 small ships against his magnificent armada. This would not even be a proper battle. He began the synchronization sequence that would coordinate his fleet for the attack on Earth. Every ship commander felt his thoughts merge with their own. Targeting data flowed through the network like blood through veins. The humans were about to learn the power of true coordination. But Li Huan was ready. He sat at his expanded workstation, surrounded by screens and signal processors. The entire communication array of the human fleet was under his control. Seo Bin sat beside him, monitoring the alien network activity. "Synchronization beginning," she reported. "All Velkari ships are connecting to the flagship." Li Huan watched the network patterns on his main display. The bioneural signals were building toward the moment when every alien ship would be linked together. His fingers hovered over the transmission controls. 40 seconds to synchronization window, Seo Bin announced. Around them, the bridge had gone completely silent. Every officer watched Li Huan work. Admiral Choi Yuna stood behind his chair, her hand resting on his shoulder. 30 seconds. Li Huan's breathing slowed. He had spent his entire life preparing for this moment, though he had not known it at the time. All those years of listening to enemy signals, breaking codes, finding patterns in chaos, it had all led to this. 20 seconds. The Velkari network reached full synchronization. 10,000 alien minds merged into a single consciousness focused on destroying Earth. Admiral Thexvar felt the collective power of his fleet like electricity in his veins. 10 seconds. Li Huan closed his eyes and listened to the alien signals. The network hummed with unified purpose. Every ship was connected. Every mind was open. The moment had arrived. "Now," Seo Bin whispered. Li Huan pressed the transmission key. The signal he sent was not random noise. It was carefully crafted to match the bio-neural frequency patterns of the Valkyrie network. To the alien ships, it looked like a legitimate command from their flagship. But hidden within the signal was something else. Li Huan had encoded a feedback loop. A signal that would cause the network to amplify and repeat itself endlessly. Like standing between two mirrors, the signal would bounce back and forth through the bio-neural connections, growing stronger each time. The effect was immediate. Admiral Thexavar felt the feedback hit his consciousness like a physical blow. The thoughts of 10,000 ships suddenly became noise, static, chaos. His carefully ordered mind exploded into fragments. Across the alien fleet, the same thing happened to every ship commander. The bio-neural network that had been their greatest strength became their worst nightmare. Feedback signals raced through organic connections, overloading brain-like processors that had never experienced such chaos. Ship after ship went dark as their bio-neural nodes shut down to protect themselves. Without network coordination, the Valkyrie crews found themselves cut off from the collective consciousness that had guided them for generations. Many alien crews had never experienced individual thought. They stumbled through their ships in confusion, unable to remember how to function without the network's guidance. "It is working," Seobin said in amazement. Li Huan opened his eyes and looked at his displays. The Valkyrie fleet was drifting in space, their perfect formation breaking apart. Ship collision alarms echoed through the alien communication channels as vessels lost their coordination. "Signal transmission complete," he reported quietly. Admiral Choi Yuna stared at the tactical display. 10,000 alien warships, the most powerful fleet ever assembled, were floating helplessly in space. "How long will they be disabled?" "Unknown," Li Huan replied. "Their bio-neural nodes are protecting themselves by shutting down. It could be hours before they restart." "Long enough," Admiral Choi said grimly. She turned to her fleet commanders. "All ships begin attack runs on disabled vessels. Target their communication arrays first. Keep them from re-establishing their network." The human fleet moved forward, 300 ships against 10,000. But for the first time in the war, the odds were in humanity's favor. Li Huan watched the battle begin on his screens. He had done his part. The rest was up to the fleet commanders and their crews. He leaned back in his chair, finally allowing exhaustion to take over. "You did it," Seobin said softly. "You saved Earth." Li Huan nodded slowly. His quiet voice was almost lost in the sound of battle alarms. "Sometimes the best way to fight is not to fight at all. Sometimes the best weapon is understanding your enemy better than they understand themselves." The silence was complete. For the first time in centuries, the bio-neural network that connected the Valkyrie fleet was dead. 10,000 warships drifted through space like sleeping giants, their crews struggling to understand what had happened to their collective consciousness. Admiral Thexvar clutched his command throne with 4 of his 6 arms. The other 2 pressed against his compound eyes as waves of pain crashed through his individual mind. He had not experienced personal thought since childhood. The network had been his identity, his purpose, his very soul. Now he was alone in his own head, and the silence was terrifying. Li Huan watched the chaos unfold on his screens. The human fleet moved through the disabled Valkyrie ships like sharks among sleeping whales. Every few minutes, another alien vessel surrendered or was captured. The most powerful armada in galactic history had become a collection of helpless targets. "Damage reports coming in," Seobin announced. "The Valkyrie crews are not resisting. Most ships are completely unresponsive. They do not know how to fight without their network," Li Huan explained. His voice was still quiet, but for the first time in days he sounded relaxed. "Individual combat requires individual thinking. They have forgotten how to do that." Admiral Choi Yuna coordinated the human fleet's operations from her flagship. Her ships were boarding the largest Valkyrie vessels and securing their command centers. What they found amazed them. The alien crews sat motionless at their stations, staring into space with unfocused eyes. Some rocked back and forth, making soft clicking sounds. Others tried desperately to re-establish network connections that no longer existed. "It is like they are children," reported Captain Yang Tae from one of the boarding parties. "They keep reaching for something that is not there anymore." Li Huan understood their condition better than anyone. They are experiencing isolation for the first time in their lives. Imagine if you suddenly lost the ability to speak, to hear, to touch. That is what they are feeling now. Dr. Kim Day studied the medical reports from the alien crews. Their bioneural implants have shut down completely. The feedback signal you sent caused a protective response. Their organic computers turned themselves off rather than be destroyed. Will they recover? Captain Parknari asked. Li Huan considered the question carefully. Eventually. But it will take time, and they will never be the same. Once you have experienced individual thought, it is impossible to go back to pure collective consciousness. The battle, if it could be called that, was over within 6 hours. The human fleet had captured or disabled the entire Velkari Armada without losing a single ship. News of the victory spread through human space at the speed of light. Earth celebrated. The colonies celebrated. For the first time in galactic history, humanity had defeated a superior alien force through intelligence rather than firepower. But Li Huan felt no joy in the victory. He sat quietly in his communication bay, listening to the confused chatter of the captured Velkari crews. Their voices were full of fear and confusion. Children lost in a dark forest calling for parents who would never answer. Are you all right? Seobin asked, sitting down beside him. I destroyed them, Li Huan said softly. Not their ships. Their minds. Their entire way of life. You saved humanity. Yes, but I wonder if there was another way. Seobin looked at him with understanding. You could have warned them, given them a chance to retreat. They would not have listened. The network made them incapable of considering defeat. They could only attack or be destroyed. On the Velkari flagship, Admiral Thexavar finally managed to stand. His individual consciousness was slowly adapting to isolation, though the process was agony. He understood now what had happened to his fleet. One human had turned their greatest strength against them. The bioneural network that had conquered 100 worlds had become their downfall in a few seconds. He had underestimated the noisy species. They were not just noisy. They were unpredictable, creative, and terrifyingly intelligent. This human had found a weakness the Velkari had never known existed. Admiral, one of his crew members whispered. It was the first individual word spoken on a Velkari ship in centuries. What are your orders? Thexvar looked around his command bridge. His crew stared at him with new eyes, seeing him as a person rather than part of the network. They were waiting for him to make decisions with his own mind. Surrender, he said quietly. Send a message to the human fleet. Tell them we surrender. The word felt strange in his mouth. The Velkari had no word for surrender in their old language. It was a concept that required individual choice, individual failure, individual responsibility. Li Huan received the surrender message first. He translated it for Admiral Choi Yuna, adding his own observations about the alien crew's psychological state. They are not enemies anymore, he explained. They are refugees from their own collective consciousness. We need to treat them carefully. What do you recommend? Admiral Choi asked. Medical care first. Their minds are traumatized. Then rehabilitation. They need to learn how to think as individuals. It will take years. And their technology? Their knowledge of bioneural networks? Li Huan was quiet for a long moment. That knowledge could be dangerous in the wrong hands, but it could also help us understand consciousness itself, how minds connect, how thoughts travel. It might teach us things about ourselves we never knew. The aftermath of the battle changed both species forever. Humanity gained access to bioneural technology that revolutionized communication and medicine. The Velkari slowly adapted to individual consciousness, developing art, literature, and philosophy for the first time in their history. But the galaxy remembered the lesson of the silent human who defeated an entire armada without firing a shot. Other alien species took notice. Humanity's reputation changed from the noisy species to the unpredictable species. That reputation kept many potential enemies away from human space. Li Huan returned to his quiet work aboard the New Horizon. The ship resumed its mission of exploring and mapping new star systems. But now every alien civilization they encountered knew the story of the communication engineer who spoke in whispers and won the greatest battle in galactic history. Sometimes, late at night, Li Huan still listened to the Velkari frequencies. The aliens had rebuilt their communication networks, but they were different now. Individual voices mixed with collective thoughts. Personal opinions challenged group decisions. The perfect harmony of the old network was gone forever. In its place was something messier, noisier, and more human. The Velkari were learning to argue, to disagree, to think for themselves. It was chaotic and inefficient, but it was also beautiful. Xiaobin often found Li Huan in the communication bay, headphones on, listening to the changed alien voices with a slight smile on his face. "What are you thinking about?" she asked one evening. Li Huan looked up from his screens. For once his voice was not a whisper. "I am thinking about the sound of silence, and how sometimes when the silence ends, what comes next is even more important than what came before." Outside the ship's windows, the stars shone with the light of 1,000 civilizations. Each one had learned that the quiet human engineer had changed the rules of galactic warfare forever. In the end, it was not humanity's roar that conquered the stars. It was the whisper of one man who understood that the most powerful weapon is knowledge, and the most effective attack is the one your enemy never sees coming. The galaxy was a noisier place now, and Li Huan, the quiet engineer who rarely spoke above a whisper, had made it that way.